Hey everyone. Today I thought I'd put together another video showing my up-to-date workflow for sports photography using Adobe Lightroom. I did this video initially about 4 years ago, and while nothing's massively changed, Lightroom has improved. Plus I thought I'd just give you an update on a couple of things I've learned along the way, just in case it helps you out when you're doing your workflow as well. So I'm going to start by importing some photos. Now if you've ever used Lightroom before, you'll know that if you put a memory card in that's got new photos on, it's recognized, the import dialog will automatically show. I've had my card reader plugged in just a few moments already, so I'm going to go to File and then Import Photos or Video. What that's going to then do is it is likely to boot up your list of devices or file locations you can import from on the left hand side here. I'm just going to click my memory card. By default, it's pretty important to have this new photos option clicked at the top. What that's going to do is it's going to look for any additional photos to when you last imported. And that's really useful actually, because it's going to stop you having loads of duplicate photos added. So if you're editing at pitch side and you import or you ingest some photos from your memory card at pitch side to try and get those off to whoever your client is, what you don't want to be doing is important constant duplicate photos that you've already kind of worked with. It'll clog your hard drive up, and it's also going to slow you down quite a lot as well. So new photos will display any incremental photos that have been taken since your last import. Now all the photos on this current memory card I've got, I actually ingested last night for a match I was shooting, so that's why it's shown no new photos on this memory card. So you can hop over to all photos, and that'll show you anything that's already on that memory card, or you can go to another file location using these options on the left hand side. So what you do is you select the photos that you want to import or re-import. If you're on new photos, as I say, these are likely to all just be ticked by default of any new photos that you've added. So you click import there, and then what that's going to do is it's going to show you this tile in the center, which will have all your photos on. So quickly to run through the screen, this navigator panel on the left hand side is going to have all the different dates of imports that you've done into Lightroom. So you can see up the left hand side here, 25th of the 8th 2020, that was last night's game that I shot. 677 photos I imported from that. This game on Saturday 22nd of August, around 1200 photos or 1100 photos. And you'll see there's not been too many imports between that and February, March time. That's obviously because the football season got shelved or postponed due to COVID, and I just had nothing to shoot. So that's why there's a bit of a gap in my files or in my import date on the left hand side. So once your import's complete, this central panel, this library if you like, is where all your photos are going to be first delivered to. And what you can do here is you can, well, several things actually. You can use these dots at the bottom here to give them a star rating. So you see as you can click on it, they will change. You can highlight multiple if you want as well, so you can do similar edits or whatever to multiple photos at one time. Or what I tend to do, you know yourself when you've taken a good photo in what parts of the game or whatever sporting event you photograph, and you'll know roughly what the sequence was. You just know and where to find those photos. So I'm just going to pick photo number 31 here. You can see the little thumbnail. The stadium is pretty much slanted. I was lying down in the rain taking these, so that'll be why. And if you click develop up in this top menu bar here, that is going to take you through to this screen. And this is where we do basic edits. Now I shoot primarily in JPEG. However, I have started again to try and have the camera shoot both large JPEG files and RAW files as we go. So if I click back to some of the earlier photos I was shooting yesterday, you'll see at the bottom here CR2, so Camera Raw 2 is a file extension. I did change midway through the game, given that the weather was actually atrocious. It doesn't look too bad on some of these. If you click into them, you might get a little bit of an idea how much rain was falling. So it's not really too much camera grain there or anything. It is just rain, I promise you. So yeah, I didn't really want to clog my computer with too many raw photos for pre-season friendly, where there's not going to be a massive circulation. There's not going to be amazing lighting or skies that I can really need to bring back or want to bring back through using raw files. So I just switch back into JPEG. So 31, let's jump into it then. Click develop. And the first thing you probably want to do, I'd just straighten this off. So again, if you use a crop tool on the right hand side, very quickly you can just rotate that round. And I normally look for either the goalpost or the stand to be straight. So at the end here, or even go for your horizon line to just try and match kind of the level of the grass here along here. Try and measure that up so it's nice and straight. And then if you want to crop in a little bit, you can do. I'm not going to labour the point on any of the editing bits too much. That the main ones I tend to use, you might tweak your exposure up and down depending on what the photo looks like after you've taken it. Thing about sports as well, it's not like when you're doing landscape photography and you might pop an ND filter on, or you might a couple of versions of the same photos stop either side. So you can kind of bring almost the HDR effect afterwards. You're not going to do that at sports, so you're looking for the detail in the stadium, you're looking for the detail on the pitch, in the stands. So the sky will often kind of bear the brunt of that, if you will. And that's what's happened there. The sky was particularly dull and boring anyway. There wasn't much colour into it. If we drag the highlights down, you see a little bit of grey there, texture come through. So you could leave that down if you want. I don't like having photos that look too overworked though, so I probably won't drag that quite all the way. You can lift your shadows if you want to. I'm not going to here. You might put a bit of contrast on. If you wanted to, saturation is fairly useful just for bringing colours back. Really good if you're maybe shot in poor light in the winter. Saturation can sometimes, not much, but it can give it a nice little kick. I'd never apply it certainly more than a plus 10 or plus 12 kind of range on this bar here, because it does start to look really really fake. And if I just crank this up momentarily, you can see those colours just start to look a little bit garish, to be honest. At the top of the stand up here, those colours have popped out far too much. The pictures started to go crazy colour green, and a few other bits as well. So I'd normally stick that right back down. If you're going to tweak it at all, maybe just put it +5 or +6 on this occasion. Other ones you can use, depending on circumstance and depending on what you need to do with the photo, is you could start to play with things like dehaze and clarity. But by and large, highlights and shadows are the one I will use for football more often than not. Maybe a little bit of contrast, and that's kind of down to the circumstances you're shooting in. As you can see, Tranmere Rovers is a stadium I shoot at more often than not. At the start and the end of the season, the kind of first couple of months and the last couple of months of a normal season, the shadows on the pitch on a sunny day will basically cut right up the middle, partly because the shadow of that one big stand you can see at the end of the pitch here. So highlights and shadows, depending on your camera settings, can really help bring the detail back into a photo, and that's why you will want to keep it shooting in camera raw for those tricky lighting contrasts, I guess. Another thing you can do, from this develop panel is there's loads of different color options if you want to really tweak your photos down here, and different toning effects. You can have vignettes and noise reduction, lens corrections, etc. Personally, I don't touch anything below the basic edits when I'm shooting sports live, because you generally don't get time to do so. You're looking to get the shot as near as the final product that you want in camera, so that when it comes into the laptop or into Lightroom here, you've literally got a few minutes or a few moments just to do a really quick tweak. I've just hopped back into the library a second just to show you. On the right hand side here, Adobe Lightroom will give you some keyword suggestions based on things you've used before. You can create keyword sets as well, so you can literally just click some of these and that will drop that keyword onto the metadata of that file. And also you can add your captions and different things in here on the right hand side. Now, good thing to note here, I still use Photo Mechanic when I really need to do a lot of captions. If I'm working for an agency, I will still use Photo Mechanic for that. I'm going to put a tutorial up in the next few weeks using Photo Mechanic 3, which is the latest version. So if you're using Mac and you've updated your operating system to Catalina, you will have to transition on to Photo Mechanic version 3. We'll cover that in more detail in another video, but yeah, that's where I would do most of the captions rather than here in Lightroom. Now, once you're happy with your photo, file, and you're going to export. Now, what I will tend to do is I'll export all these into a Dropbox or a different location, depending on who I'm shooting for. And I'm going to do two versions ordinarily. So, for example, when I'm shooting for this football club, Tranmere Rovers, on a match day, I will export a high-res photo, and then into a subfolder, what I'm going to do is I'm going to export a smaller watermarked version. So here's how I do both of those. Let me hop back a step and try not to waft my way through. So File and Export is going to bring up the export file dialog. So in this top section here, what you're going to do is you're going to choose a file location to where that photo, that finished product, will export to. Now, as you can see, I just popped these into a Dropbox file like this, and then there's a load of other things that you may want to consider. You can do some renaming, so if you want to do sequential file renames and different things like that, there is some functionality within Adobe Lightroom to do that. I don't personally. File settings, you can kind of limit this right down if you want to, in terms of, as I say, kind of throttling the size of that image makes it easier to send. Dimensions wise, image sizing, you could take this and give it a maximum height or width, so that will take the longest side and cap it at 1000 pixels as per the settings I've got open here. You can do things like sharpen, you can add some metadata. Now, why you might do the metadata now is if you're exporting maybe 10 or 20 or multiple photos at any one time, you can apply that same metadata to all those files in one fell swoop as you export them. And then watermark allows you to upload a watermark and use that and apply it to the image when you export it. Okay, so I'm just going to export this as is. And then because I'm doing this at pitch side, so last night it was only pre-season friendly, the stadium was totally empty, so it was a little bit, aside from the weather, it was a little bit easier than it would be in an ordinary kind of scenario. So I could hide out of the rain at the back of the stand, all the space and time in the world, and just basically be there editing, shooting, editing as I needed to. Now, normally, I've shot Europa League games, I've shot England training sessions, I've shot pretty much every level of English football. I'm really fortunate enough to do so. However, it won't be a case very often that you've got that time I had last night to be able to sit and hide and take your time doing this. You'll want to be firing off photos pretty quick to as I said earlier, whoever your client is. So what I'll do is I'll export the full high-res JPEG as I've done once already, and then I will export a smaller watermarked version when working for Tranmere. So let's scroll down and do an action photo in one fell swoop, just so you can see how quick it actually takes from start to finish. So I need to not be so fussy and just pick one, to be honest. Let's okay, let's go. Okay, so let's pick this one, 148. So quickly highlight that photo, click develop, go in. Player, I thought had his eyes shut, he hasn't, he's just looking down, so that's fine. Both players are nicely in focus. Pitch is beautiful. So the only tweaks I want to make to this really are to straighten it. So you see these shelters here, the upright isn't quite fully upright and the pitch is a little bit slanted. So use the crop tool and just ever so slightly bring that around so it's a little bit straighter. So those uprights are, well, upright, vertical. And the other thing I do with all my sports for action photos is crop them quite tight to the frame. And this is something a pretty experienced photographer told me just after I got into sports photography, really, is make sure that the action is taking up as much of the frame as possible. You don't want distractions around the outside. That's speaking quite generally. It's what a newspaper will probably use, is a nice tight action shot. It's the shots that you see on internet articles when maybe, I don't know, the BBC website is reporting on a big game. It'll have a celebration shot or a player shooting or being sent off, or from a very tightly cropped shot. And that's what you're looking for here. So I've left a little bit of room there, just around the edge, so a little bit under the boot, a little bit above the head. You might drag it ever so slightly into the middle like that, and then just click that again to bring it down. Now I look at that, and this player here is irritating me a little bit straight away because A, his head's chopped off, but B, it also opens up a little bit of space here and doesn't quite look symmetrical. So we'll persevere here. So let's just tell you what, let's just bring his head back into the frame here. Doesn't do too much harm. I'm quite happy with contrast, quite happy with exposure, brightness. Everything there is fine, really. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and export with previous. Now, export with previous is going to use the previous export settings when you opened this export page. So when you've been in here and you've clicked export, like I did a moment ago, when you go file and export with previous, this file is going to be exported with exactly the same settings to exactly the same place. So that's exactly what I'd do. Find a photo, make the edits, export it, and then a moment later I'd go to file, export with preset, and on this little menu here I'd have my preset for that particular game. So Last Night Preston North End, that's PNE. And there we go, that fires off. Now, so I'm just going to hop into Dropbox and show you how those photos are exported so you can see the difference between the two I've just done. And I'll do another video in terms of how to set your watermark up. But firstly, so here's the photo we've just exported. There we go, looks fine. Not my favourite because of the bit of a space around it, but not to worry. You'll see last night I've used a slightly different version, which is a tighter crop. Again, you can go tighter or whatever you need to lose this guy's foot on the right hand side, but let's ignore that for now. And when we go into social, when we open the watermarked version, you'll see same photo. However, it has this bit of design work in the bottom left and top right corner. All the watermark is in this case is a PNG file that is largely transparent, hence the middle can show through. And then it's got that bit of design work in the two opposite corners there, plus a little tiny bit of blue vignette in there as well. And that is just applied over the top of the photo. That is set up for a photo of a maximum width of 1000 pixels, so it only really works for landscape. But that is all they'll usually use on matched galleries, to be honest. So that will be your watermarked version. So again, not to labour the point, but just to show you kind of a bit more real time. So let's use this photo of James Vaughan running. So let's say it's a poor photo, but let's go with it. Let's say this is the photo I wanted to use. Quick crop, maybe make that a little bit bigger actually. Again, all sorts of reasons why this wasn't used last night and isn't edited already, but we'll go with it. So export with previous, because I know that's the high res setting, that'll get the job done for the main photo, and then export with preset, done, and then we move on to our next photo. So I'll just hop into Dropbox again and show you the two versions. So I think that was 4342, was it? There we go, it's exported to the bottom here. So there we go, here's a full high-res version, and then we go into our sub-file that we create for social media purposes for the club, and we go to the bottom, and there it is again. And there we go, it's already resized down, as you can see on the right-hand side here, to 1000 pixels by 667, and it's got that watermark on top of it. And that's pretty much all we do. So as I ingest during the game, I'll literally scroll through, find the photos I want to use for the match live galleries, edit and send, and it's as simple as that. It's really quick. As the game goes on, those photos will go into Dropbox as frequently as possible, normally at least a couple of times per halve, a little bit more if goals are going in. I'll try and do them immediately after goals. And that's it in terms of my workflow. It's pretty quick. I've done it a million times now. I've been using Lightroom for picture kind of editing for probably 6 or 7 years. And that's it really. I'm going to work on a couple of other videos, one to show you in more detail how we set that watermark up, and I'll go through the full process of applying a watermark from scratch in Lightroom. And I'm also going to make that video about the Photo Mechanic 3. Let me know any feedback you've got, and thanks for watching.